What's up in War Eagle War Report family? You got Ike Jones. We are back with another weekend tailgate, and today we are talking the aftermath after Big Cat Weekend 2024. What does that mean for Auburn recruiting going forward, and how good was Big Cat Weekend for Auburn? We'll talk about that and more on this edition of the Weekend Tailgate. Let's do it.
This is the Weekend Tailgate, brought to you by Golden's Cast Iron. C-Dub. Ike Jones. Be Will. Mike G. You are now listening to
The Weekend Tailgate, brought to you by Golden's Cast Iron. Whether you work out, grill out, or chill out, Golden's Cast Iron's got a little something for you. Make sure when you head over there, you use the link goldenscastiron.com/WR. That lets them know the War Report sends you. And you can use code Get Your Weight Up to get 15% off of weights. Code TWR to get $65 off of fire pits and Kamado grills. We are in here today talking a little Big Cat Weekend recap. Ike Jones, Mike G. C-Dub will be joining us a little bit later. Before we get into the conversation, make sure that you guys are doing all the necessary stuff. Y'all know, sharing the content out there with somebody out there on social media, email, text message, doesn't matter. Tell them the Weekend Tailgate is going down right now. And you guys, the War Report, are in here talking about all things Auburn sports. Make sure that you subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And you can go ahead and give a thumbs up to the video because you know you're going to like what you're hearing because it's us, right? Like, you know, it's the War Report. We're doing our thing, man. Before we get over into the conversation as well, we got a few more announcements that we can give to you. Mike G, tell the people about some of the things that they can do to support the great work we're doing at the War Report.
You guys know the deal. The season is approaching, and you know what that means. It means it's time for us, Ike, to give away football tickets. We got 5 straight home games. We're going to be sending 10 people to Auburn football games. If you are a patron, you are more likely to be on the receiving end of God's blessings, which are Auburn football tickets. So $5.99 a month will get you there. I appreciate everybody who does this. I know Ike appreciates it. This helps keep the work that we're doing. You see us here at Big Cat. You see us all these different places. We're there by the grace of our members. So please sign up. $5.99 a month will get you there. Also, you can give the gift of the War Report by hitting that gifted membership button. It's a great program YouTube has started. You guys have taken great advantage of this to help boost our Green Name gang. So hit that gifted membership button. Make sure you give the gift of the War Report. Also want to give a special shout out to show sponsor Vintage 2298 Restaurant and Butcher Shop. Our guy Randall Baldwin is on as a sponsor. They sponsor the firesides. They sponsor the lives. They do everything over there at the Vintage 2298 Restaurant and Butcher Shop. Please go check them out if you're looking for some good eats in the Auburn area. And last but not least, this show is brought to you by JOYMODE. Use JOYMODE.com to get yourself some powder that will do some things for you. Let's call out the obvious. Everyone wants to head into the bedroom with confidence, feeling like the best version of themselves. But the problem is sometimes our thoughts get in the way of our performance, or maybe we feel like we're just not reaching our full potential. What are our options? Let the intrusive thoughts win. Pick up a sketchy gas station pill or get prescribed a drug with a long list of side effects. That's where our friends over at JOYMODE come in. Imagine a supplement you can take like your favorite greens packet that gives you that extra dose of confidence and saves you the embarrassment and hassle of a traditional erection pill. Stir it in 6 to 8 ounces of water 45 minutes before you have the boom boom time and watch the magic unfold. This is the only supplement you'll need in the bedroom, but it also supports your blood vessels, cardiovascular health, athletic performance, and blood pressure. Use JOYMODE.com and use code REPORT. We guarantee she'll never leave you after this.
That's such an interesting, never leave you after this. That's yeah, man. Speaking of never leave, hopefully none of these recruits ever leave.
There you go.
This weekend.
Love that segue.
We're going to be talking about Big Cat Weekend. Mike G was live on the premises. checking out all of the action from Big Cat Weekend. Before we get into the specifics of it, just kind of give us an overview of what the environment was. This is your second year in a row down at Big Cat Weekend. Yeah. How was it in year 2 under Coach Freeze during Big Cat Weekend for you?
It was interesting. You know, the recruits all started to show up around noon. Their parents were pulling up. You know, we had a recruit pull up in a cyber truck. It was an interesting start. The vibe was good. They were bumping, you know, Biggie and Pac in the lobby. I was like, man, whoever's playlist this is not one of this generation's. It was our generation. They had our generation going in there. And you know, it was most of the bells and whistles that you expect from Big Cat. They do a scavenger hunt. They play games, right? Like they bond with their possible future former teammates. They eat. And recruits really get a chance to see what Auburn is all about. Now, I did get a chance to talk to like many different sets of parents in the lobby before Big Cat got started. And I can tell you that Auburn has an effect on families. I don't know. I mean, I know this sounds very Vin Dieselish of me, but like Auburn, it captures your heart. And the parents said that quite a bit when I was talking to them before. Now, for a lot of them, it wasn't their first time to Auburn.
Right.
But they said, you know, no matter how many times we come here, the feeling is always the same. It feels like home. So it was good from that aspect. Now, Big Cat got cut short because of weather. Everybody remembers last year the pool.
Right, the epic pool scene, yeah. Coach Hugh Freeze getting tossed into the pool, all of that. The flip of Perry Thompson with a literal flip into the pool, all of that. Yeah,
it was thunder and lightning, so they skipped the pool part this year and they cut it a few hours short. But what I did notice was, even though the activities ended a little early, families and recruits hung around for quite a bit. You know, until after supper for a lot of them, just talking to coaches and mingling with their potential future teammates. And I thought it was a successful weekend for Hugh Freeze. He looked focused. He looked everything needs to be perfect. You know, that was kind of where Hugh Freeze was at with this. So it was a good weekend. It was a really good weekend.
Yeah, one of the things that I noted that I think is going to be interesting is that at media days, we got an opportunity to have just kind of an earlier sit down with Coach Freeze before he went out and addressed the entirety of the media, ESPN, et cetera. They took time for the Auburn media. And I was in that room. And one of the things that he talked about was the conversations he had been having with the recruiting staff about like what happened with the lull of like, you know, there just wasn't any activity going on in recruiting. And he was like, yeah, I got to go have a conversation with Will about that. And that to me kind of spoke to the fact that Hugh Freeze has recommitted himself a little bit more to being present in that QB room, which Peyton Thorne had talked about. So Big Cat Weekend was his opportunity to really get back into the swing of some of that recruiting stuff that he loves to do. And to your point, he's there and he's focused in that moment because he hasn't really been in the trenches with that like he was last season. So that actually gives me a little bit of confidence going into this year about what the offense could potentially look like. It could look a lot more like the Coach Hugh Freeze offense that people are expecting from Auburn. But as we get into the season, we'll see, you know, how much that pays dividends. But more specifically, the Big Cat Weekend, good to see Coach Freeze and his staff out there really doing work this weekend. You and I were talking a little bit before we got on screen and talked about like this is touted as the biggest recruiting weekend of the year for Auburn. And honestly, I'm going to be honest, as a guy who's not big on recruiting, it was a little anticlimactic for me, right? Because you got 5 recruits. 3 of them were 2026 guys.
Yep.
So you only got 2 guys for the 2025 cycle. And I was expecting a little more from that. But say all that to say, I'm not disappointed. It just, to me, I was like, oh, man, they're about to have something crazy happen. I don't know that anything crazy happened other than maybe the subsequent flip back of Antonio Coleman, which we'll get into in a minute. But what were your thoughts on that, Mike?
The Antonio Coleman thing was interesting. Our guy, Cole Pinkston over on 3 was just, you know, like, hey, I think he's headed back to Alabama after this. So who knows what's going on there? Obviously, you know, if they accepted his commitment, you know, they really want him. But I'm with you. It felt a little underwhelming because of the hype that was coming. Now, look, Auburn is ranked number 1 in the 2026 recruiting rankings. So, if you did enough work to be ranked number 1, and the way these recruiting classes are falling, Ike, you got to get your guys in the fold sooner.
Yeah.
Than you did before, with early signing day and guys wanting to commit before their season starts. You've got to do it sooner. And I think that Hugh Freeze put a focus on that. So, I mean, they've got 18 commits in this class currently.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure about how many they can take this cycle.
Quite a bit, I would imagine, just because of the number of upperclassmen that are in there. And Coach Hugh Freeze's continued commitment to saying we're going to stick with high school recruiting as our bed. I would assume that they're going to I'd be shocked if it wasn't 25 recruits in this class.
Yeah. I mean, you're looking at it and you're thinking, all right, well, they've still got work to do then. You've got to get 7 more bodies in here. There's not a 5-star in this group yet.
Right.
I think they got 11 4-stars and 7 3-stars right now. But it felt like there would be more of a 2025 flavor to this Big Cat weekend, and there wasn't. There wasn't a Perry Thompson moment,
right?
This weekend, but they're doing great work. They're bordering on top 10, so you know what that means. That means you're a couple of recruits away of jumping up there in between like 7 and 5,
right?
If they get the right recruit. So we'll see. I know that there's some guys still left on the board that Auburn wants, and they've obviously got room to take a few. So we'll see what they decide to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I plan on at some point during this week, maybe this Wednesday, we'll have him back on talking with my guy Duke the Scoop to get some more info on that. I haven't had my follow-up conversation that I promised with Caleb Jones about that. So we've got some more insight coming to you guys specifically about what will be happening with some of the guys that maybe didn't commit during Big Cat weekend, but have plans to commit in the coming weeks or coming days following Big Cat weekend. But as Mike G said, according to 247, Auburn currently ranked as the number 11 recruiting class in the country, 18 total commits, 11 of those being 4-star, 7 of those being 3-star commits. And you're really just 1 5-star away from being top 7, really. Like I really believe that if Auburn lands 1 5-star in this class, they're already in the top 7. And then when you add on the other 4 and 3 stars that will subsequently commit, because again, I do expect Auburn to take somewhere in the range of 24 to 25 in this class, that will likely get you into a top 5 class, right? Like, or very like on the edge of it. And again, that's only with 1 5-star in that. So we'll see where things goes. But specifically, my bad, you sound like you're about to go somewhere.
Well, I think you were about to go into the actual 2025 rankings, right? Yeah. That's where I was going.
So for Big Cat weekend, as far as recruits that happen, you had your edge rusher from Huntsville come in, Hezekiah Harris. He's a 2026 commit. Shadarius Tootle, who is from Mobile, Alabama, 4-star commit coming over as a linebacker. I don't know if I ain't gonna do it right now, but we'll talk about it in a second. Jermichael Garrett was the next commitment of the day, linebacker from Gulf Shores. He also is a 4-star commit, and he is a part of the 2026 class. So the first 3 commits from the day, all 2026 guys, and then you had your 2 2025 commits coming, and that's Blake Woody, cornerback from Baltimore, Maryland, 4-star. And, of course, the aforementioned Antonio Coleman, the former Auburn, now former Bama commit, flipping back to Auburn over from Saraland, Alabama, which is a big thing. Listen, Saraland has been controversial in the Auburn, Alabama recruiting wars that have been happening. But 4-star defensive lineman now recommitted to Auburn, but still potentially making a trip to Alabama soon. So we'll see how that goes. But those are the 5 commits from this weekend. Just thoughts on the haul there from Auburn there.
It was a good haul. Like I said, I mean, you got enough 2026 commits to be ranked number 1 at this point. Now, obviously, we'll see if that holds. We're a long way from 2026. So you got a whole 2024 season to play. 2025 season to play. I mean, we'll see. We'll see where that lands. But the pickup of Blake Woodby, right? He is such an interesting commit. Now, he's got a national ranking on 247 as the 129th rated player in the 2025 class, Ike. But ESPN says he's the 22nd best player in the country.
Right.
So that, yeah, I mean, you're getting a guy who is kind of all over the board. On 3, had him as an unrated 3-star. So he is all over the place in terms of, their evaluation. I hope Auburn hopes he's closer to that 22nd ranking that ESPN has on him. Obviously, reminds me a lot of the kid that they got from Tennessee a few years ago, Dylan Brooks. He was like that. ESPN ranked him the 18th overall player, but then some of the other websites had him outside 150. It was very strange. But look, man,
hopefully he's not like Dylan Brooks, because it seems as if those other spots might have been more right about it, because I haven't heard. I mean, I don't know. Is he doing anything for Tennessee? I haven't talked to Tennessee fans. Are they expecting big? Well, where is he? Actually, he left Auburn
and went somewhere.
Yeah, I forgot where he went after he left Auburn, but like, I don't know. Is Dylan Brooks doing anything wherever he is right now?
Yeah, you're right. It seems like the people who had him rated lower may have been right. But look, Woodby was a good pickup. Auburn,
Kansas. Thank you, James Sawyer. That's where
Kansas. Is that where he went? So, yeah. The continue to bolster that secondary and get strong corner play in. Hugh Freeze is really, really big on wide receivers, corners, safeties. Those skill position athletic types. He loves. He said stack them to the ceiling here, and so that pickup I thought was really big for him. For them. Now, this is a kid out of the Baltimore area.
Yeah.
And quietly, they have some very good football players in that DC, metro Baltimore area up there. I lived up there for a few years. I can tell you some really good football players that come out of there. I think that was a strong pick. Now, they only had 220. Well, we mentioned they only had 25 guys. And so you needed to make sure that you're filling needs, I think, at this point, rather than just kind of getting more bodies in. I think Blake Woodby fills a need for them. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I am a build it from the trenches guy. I think Coach Hugh Freeze adopts that. I like what they've done with the offensive line already in this class. Defensive line is a place where, Coach Freeze has been noted as saying he felt like he was thin last season. Thinks they're a little bit better, maybe six deep along the defensive line. So I think that, and I say all that to say this Antonio Coleman situation, I think, is important for this staff. They want to be able to bring him into the fold, because if you can continue to have him there, you can keep Malik Autry out of the clutches of Ohio State, who is doing everything to pull him away. And you can, Caleb Falk, who is currently in this class as an edge rusher, is going to be big. And Jordan Crawford, who I think is a very underrated prospect in this class. If you can keep those guys in the fold, you've got some good players along that defensive front to pair with what you have as what I think is a strong offensive line class to lead into the future from the guys that that you're already going to have coming, or you assume are coming back. I don't want to say no in the age of NIL and the transfer portal, but you've got some strong young players along that defensive front that you add some more into this class coming in, and you really are starting to build the trenches the way that you really need to.
There's a developing storyline happening between Hugh Freeze and Kalen DeBoer. Now, a lot of folks thought that recruiting would fall off under DeBoer. It hasn't. He's rebounded from, I think, the exodus of players they had once Saban announced that he was retiring. They were able to hold on to convince some of those guys to come back. But it seems as if Alabama has opened up the pocketbooks
for sure,
and they're gonna do everything they can to make sure that DeBoer has what he needs from a talent perspective. Now, we'll see. I go back and forth with people about his scheme and whether it'll work in the SEC. Ultimately, I think that'll be the biggest factor in whether he can continue the recruiting momentum. But look, I mean, Coleman seems he's flip-flopped here, a couple times,
a few times.
Yeah. But if you're Hugh Freeze, you want to win more of those than you lose. Right? Like, you want to be able to say, look, man, you cannot, right? What you can't do is, I think that people could accept losing recruits to Nick Saban. They would accept losing to Alabama while Nick Saban was, because everybody was losing to them.
Right.
Right? Nobody was beating them. But they're not going to accept that with a different guy at the helm, right? There's got to be more wins than losses there in terms of recruiting battles, so that you can get more wins than losses on the field.
Yeah.
And that's what it boils down to. So I don't know that DeBoer is going to be what Saban was in terms of hiring great assistants and always seeming to know how to pull it out, no matter what circumstances they were facing. Look at last season. People were gloom and doom. Is Jalen Milroe the guy, all this stuff, and then they ended up making the playoff.
Right.
And that is classic Alabama. I just don't think that is going to be an acceptable status quo with DeBoer's coach. So if you're Hugh Freeze, you've got to get in here and you've got to show recruits that, look, man, Auburn is a better program to be at right now. Forget what they did in the past. That has nothing to do with you.
Right.
Right? Like he's building something new here, and it's not better than what I had. I think you can just admit, look, man, Saban is the GOAT. He was the GOAT. He did it great. DeBoer is not. If you're Hugh Freeze, this isn't your first time around the block in the SEC. You cannot get out recruited by Kalen DeBoer.
Yeah.
You can't. You can't let him come in and take recruits. You can't have guys flipping that way. So
yeah, I think they've got a lot of work to do to change perceptions out there. And it's a portion of this is going to have to be, and this is something that we've talked about really over the last year, is going to have to be the proof of concept on the field.
Right.
Like, that's why the 6-7 season last year stung so much. Like, of course, you don't want to have your New Mexico State loss. You don't want to have the very anticlimactic and disappointing. I don't even want to use the word anticlimactic, heartbreaking loss at the end of the Iron Bowl last season. You don't want to have those things just in general, but you don't want to have that in a season where you only get 6 wins and you really had an opportunity to have 8. So, you need to start showing a way that you've got winning DNA in your locker room and on your coaching staff for Coach Hugh Freeze. And these young men that are making their decisions are going to start to lean your direction a little bit more. Now, they've done a tremendous job of recruiting despite, I think, what have been some failures on the field in that first season.
Yeah.
And that is 100% kudos to Coach Hugh Freeze and his ability to put that staff together. That's done a great job of getting those commitments from young men coming out of high school. And I think this recruiting staff has gotten even better this season, which is crazy to think how well they recruited last year. I think that they've actually done better as a recruiting staff as far as just a person to person. They might have upgraded across the board in their ability to go out there and recruit. But this year, you've got to show it on the field in order to keep that momentum going.
Yeah, the message has been, we're not there yet, but we will be after you get here. We need you. We need you to be the piece in the puzzle that we need to complete the picture and get Auburn football back to the days where they could compete. If you follow us on Twitter, at the War Report, you follow me or Ike, TWR Ike Jones, at Mike Giddens. I posted a highlight, Ike, of the 2017 Iron Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
And in watching the replay of that game, there were plays being made on both sides of the ball. Kerryon Johnson was an absolute monster in that game. Jarrett Stidham was dropping darts, right? Defensively, they were getting turnovers, getting to the quarterback. Jalen Hurts was the quarterback of that team. Now, we all know how that ended. They went on to win a national championship incredulously after losing the Iron Bowl that year, and Auburn had a chance to make the playoff but couldn't get it done against Georgia in the second matchup. But I think what Hugh Freeze is trying to do here, and the reason why I brought up that Iron Bowl was, the path is a little different now with the 12-team playoff. Right. I think a 12-team playoff that year, Auburn is in.
True.
Auburn makes a 12-team playoff in 2017. But especially beating Georgia and Alabama, back to back. But if you're Hugh Freeze, you want enough bullets in your gun to win that rematch. It's very difficult to beat the same team twice in one season. Yeah. And usually the team that loses has the upper hand, right? The team that wins may get lulled into a false sense of, well, what we did worked. It was, obviously Kerryon got run into the ground, and there were some things that went against Auburn in that rematch. But you want enough guys on your team that you can outgun them, That's what you want. You want enough guys on your team that you can outgun a team like Georgia twice in the same season.
Yeah.
Because in a 12-team playoff, it's very possible that you might
it-
have to play somebody twice to get to
it almost feels unlikely that you're not going to have some sort of
rematch
between
from the SEC and the 12-team
SEC
playoff.
and Big Ten and SEC. Like both, if not both of those conferences will have some sort of big rematch because they play a conference championship game, and likely both teams from that conference championship game will make the 12-team playoff, and they're likely going to be one of the best teams in the country. It feels very unlikely that you don't see a rematch.
I think it would be difficult. It's difficult in this league to out-scheme the better coaches twice, right? So it comes down to dudes at that point, and you just need more than they have. You need guys who will go out and win those 50-50 balls more than 50% of the time. You need guys who are bigger, faster, stronger, smarter, quicker, understand the game and can process it at a high level, and you need more of them. Now, nobody has more of them than Kirby Smart right now.
Right.
I saw a joke that it was just like, who's going to take down Georgia? And someone was like, right now it looks like the Athens Police Department. But he's got so many good players that when they process a guy out, I believe that Ra Thomas is going to get kicked off the team there. Do you think they're worried about that?
Worry, I think, is strong. I think they feel good about, having some other guys in place, but Ra was definitely going to be one of the guys, though. So
yeah, for sure. Like, I mean, you brought him there for a reason. Yeah, but your world is not ending because I don't think it makes or breaks their season. Yeah, it will be a footnote. Nobody will look back at the successes or lack thereof for Georgia and say Ra Thomas would have been the difference. That's the type of roster that Hugh Freeze is trying to build. Right now, it feels very Cam Coleman or bustish, right? Yeah.
From what we've seen so far, I would say that's that's probably the sentiment of a lot of Auburn fans. It's like if Cam Coleman doesn't do his thing, you still got some other guys there, Perry Thompson. But yes, I do agree with that.
Yeah, it feels very Cam. I'm not saying that it will be. I'm just saying it's how it feels right now.
Yeah.
But wait until he gets 2 more recruiting cycles under his belt, and it won't feel that way.
Right.
Now, Cam obviously is the guy that you want, but if he has to be out for any reason, you want to know that you have enough guys that you can continue to run your offense and just continue to be great when he comes back.
Right.
So, that's what Hugh Freeze is trying to build here. It's going to be interesting in a 12-team playoff era where you don't have to win the SEC or even be the runner-up to make the playoff. I think that 2 teams make it automatically. I think a third is more almost certain, right? And a fourth is very likely.
Yeah, I'd be shocked at a scenario where the SEC does not have at least 3, and 4. Like you said, I'd put a pretty high wager if you were setting Vegas odds on number of teams from the SEC to make the 12-team playoff. I would put it at 3.5 would be the number, and I would pick. I likely would take the over in that and say, well, 4 is probably
four is probably where it's going to be a good number. Well, last year we know it. Georgia, Alabama, Ole Miss, Missouri all make that playoff, right? Easily, and all top 10 teams. So how can you think that they're one of the 10 best teams in the country, but not one of the best 12 that deserve to make the playoffs? I'm not sure that math pans out. I think people are going to hate this a lot outside of the SEC. When we sat down with Greg Sankey and we talked about recruiting and we talked about the quality of players and coaches in the conference, Ike, I asked him, I said, do you think maybe the conference might consider going to a 9-conference game schedule? And his answer was funny, man. He said, well, we need more data points to make that decision. And I said, that sounds like if we get 4 teams in, no, and if we don't, maybe we'll think about it, right? Like, because he's going to do what's best for the league. But the coaches have to do their part, and that means recruiting the best players in the country, developing the best players in the country, and winning at a high level. That's what Hugh Freeze is trying to achieve here. He's trying to be in that conversation. Sankey has spoken with Hugh Freeze, likes what he hears from him. Since they made the decision to bring him back to the SEC at Auburn. And, look, man, they've got a vision for this thing, I think, at Auburn football, where it is similar to what he was trying to do at Ole Miss. However, it's Ole Miss. And it's harder. I mean, think about it. Lane Kiffin is great at developing, but he's not running 5-star kids through the SIP.
No, he might get them in the transfer portal after they
But
disappointed
out of high
somewhere
school,
else.
that's not where they're really choosing to go. Not in great numbers anyway. And he's got great success. He's got proof of concept. I mean, his
offenses have been amazing.
He had a 10-2 team last year that only lost to Alabama and Georgia, and he can't do it. So ultimately, I think you can do it at Auburn. I think that coaches have proven that you can recruit at a high level at Auburn, and Hugh Freeze has the resources. So we'll see, after Big Cat, if we see some more commitments to fill out that 2025 class.
Yeah, I think people left with a good feeling about where Auburn is in recruiting right now and good momentum. It's going to be up to those guys to close the deal, though. Can they close the deal with some of those guys that are teetering on the edge? Because I think some of these young men are wanting to go ahead and figure this out before school starts, right? More and more of these young men are making their commitments before the football season starts so they can go into their senior season without having to worry about trying to, have look, and I'm shutting it down. This is where I'm going, and you can still call, but I might not answer type of thing going on with those. So it's crunch time right now from Big Cat weekend because school's starting here next month and high school football seasons will be beginning very soon. So we'll see where that goes. All right. We are going to take a quick break right here. We're going to come back from the other side of the break and get your phone. No, I'm saying phone calls. Yesterday I was taking phone calls.
Office hours.
Yeah, I was taking phone calls during office hours. Apparently I'm accustomed to that at this point in time. We are not doing phone calls during the weekend tailgate, but we will get to your comments here on the other side of the break. But you all are watching the weekend tailgate brought to you by Golden's Cast Iron.
This edition of the War Report is brought to you by our generous sponsors. The Opelika Rage Room in Opelika, Alabama. The Rage Room is a place where anger and stress find their ultimate release. Call or text 334-777-6688 to set up a session today or check them out online at opelikaRageroom.com. Golden's Cast Iron. Whether you work out, grill out, or chill out, you deserve the best life possible, and Golden's Cast Iron is here to provide the tools to help you do it. Check them out at goldenscastiron.com.
You guys know the deal. Sign up as a patron. I thought I saw a couple signups today, but look, $5.99 a month. That'll help keep the work that we're doing here at the War Report going. We appreciate all our patrons. The season is coming, guys. And as always, we're giving away tickets to every single Auburn home game. We got 8 of them. So you can get in on that action by becoming a patron member. That Auburn-Oklahoma game, Ike, it's looming large. Everybody wants tickets to that game. I know we'll be there, so we want you to be there as well, too. Give the gift of the War Report by hitting that gifted membership button. I saw a couple of these given away. I think we got about 10 or 15 given away so far on this live cast, so we appreciate you guys for doing that. Also, want to thank show sponsor JOYMODE. Use JOYMODE.com and use code REPORT to get 20% off a free shipping. Let's call out the obvious. Everyone wants to head into the bedroom with confidence, feeling like the best version of themselves. So what are our options? Give in to the intrusive thoughts, pick up a sketchy gas station bill, or get prescribed a drug with a long list of side effects. That's where our friends over at JOYMODE come in. Imagine a supplement you can take like your favorite greens packet that gives you an extra dose of confidence and saves you the embarrassment and hassle of a traditional erection pill. Not only is this the only supplement you'll need in the bedroom, but it also supports your blood vessels, cardiovascular health, athletic performance, blood pressure, and more. Use joymode.com and use code REPORT to get 20% off free shipping. Also want to thank show sponsor MANSCAPED. Sizzle alert. This is summer. Let the only thing smoking at your barbecue be the grill, not your grooming game. Smoking grooming game. Yeah. Get ready for the ultimate cookout season with Manscaped. Whether you're flipping burgers or cannonballing into the pool, make sure that your meat looks neat with Performance Package 5.0. Fire up your grooming routine and keep it cool with Manscaped. Head to manscaped.com and use code REPORT for 20% off plus free shipping. Let's make this summer sizzle for all the right reasons. Guys, you got it. You heard me.
All right.
Get your Manscaped on, use some Joy Mode, have a
Yeah.
great night.
Definitely a recipe for a good weekend right there. Want to thank Tiffany Byers for dropping through and giving away a couple of War Report memberships. So somebody has a free month on her, as well as Stephen Neely giving 5 away, and our guy Corey Weber giving away 5 War Report memberships right there. Before we get over into the super chat, I did see this comment. Wanted to make sure Colton's been a longtime follower of the War Report. He said his dad was diagnosed with stage 4 esophagus cancer.
Oh, I'm so
any
sorry to hear
prayers
that.
would be appreciated. Definitely hate to hear that, and definitely thoughts and prayers with you and your family dealing with that, Colton. Man, again, he's been rocking with the War Report for years now, so definitely not just because he's been rocking with us, but I wanted to take a time to highlight that because he has been a faithful guy coming through here. So
yeah, praying for you, brother.
All right, let's get over into the comments here. Chris O says, shout out to the home team for putting in work on the recruiting trail, and shout out to Team USA for that light dub versus Serbia.
I watched it this morning. Captain L'America is what they're calling him. He is going nuts. They had a vote, Ike, about who the best basketball player was on the team, and it was interesting hearing Anthony Edwards say before the Olympics that when the game's on the line, it's him. He's the guy, right? Me, Anthony Edwards. Right. Now the Olympics, now he's played with LeBron. He's like, LeBron's the guy. Anthony Davis, Kevin Durant, all these guys. It's cool. And he was actually the flag bearer.
Yeah.
For all of America in the Olympics. I mean, what an amazing honor. I don't think anything gives me more like pride around this time of year than watching Team USA basketball in the Olympics. It's amazing to watch. And I read somewhere where they were like in the 92 Olympics, there were maybe like 11 NBA guys playing on other Olympic squads, and there's like 80 something.
Yeah.
And this Olympics. So they face a much tougher task than the 92 Dream Team did. But they were fun to watch. I think they won by like 26.
Yeah, I think the finals margin was like something like 26. You're right. I mean, it's listen, basketball is a global game now, and thanks to that 92 Olympic team, it's become that way, and around the country, around the world, the level of basketball in these other countries has shown up at a different level. Thomas Jones, with the super sticker here, and the comment who says, don't get me wrong, but until they sign committed players only means that you are my leader at this time. Please wait until they sign on the dotted line. Listen, man, this is what leads to the Ike Jones recruiting demeanor that you guys make fun of me about. I do not get too hyped or too down on where a recruiting class is until the recruiting class is done. Now, you want to be in striking distance of your goal, right? So I think that they've done a good job of, as Thomas Jones eloquently put here, have a lot of guys who have Auburn as their leader at this point in time. That's amazing, because if you're not even in that space, you don't have a prayer of getting them on signing day, right? But I ain't spiking the ball on the 1 yard line here. We're going to wait until they actually sign before we're too hyped. And I'm not getting overly elated about having the #1 recruiting class in 2026, because there's so much time between now and then.
Yeah, it's good. It's good to be in that position, though.
For sure.
For Hugh Freeze, right? Like you would rather have guys on the radar than not coming in late. I think people get nervous when you don't have recruits in the fold, and then suddenly, you got to, pull out what looks like an 11th hour miracle. But they're getting guys interested in Auburn early. And I think it's a lot easier to convince them to stay committed than it is to try to get them to flip late.
Yeah.
So I'd rather see this than the
100%. This is the optimal spot to be in. It's easier to win the race when you're leading the race, right? Than trying to come 100%. Back and win. But just because you're leading does not mean that you will win, and that's the thing that you have to keep in mind. So good position for this recruiting staff to be in. JJ Brand jumps in and says the recruiting staff must have taken joy mode because they are straight up banging. I would not expect anything less from John Brandon.
I love that. I love that analogy. That was amazing. Very, very well done. Well done, young man.
Jonathan Boyson said, did a QB show up? Not that I know of, but here's what I know. Here's what I know for sure about Coach Hugh Freeze and this staff. They will 100% have people show up to things like this, but not have them show up to things like this, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. So just because it wasn't reported doesn't mean it didn't happen. And I'm not even suggesting that it did happen under the cover or the veil of anything. I'm just saying, I don't know. Marion Thomas says, didn't Alford show up? Maybe Freeze is cooking another flip from OSU like with Lee. I do believe that Naheem Alford was there yesterday, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
I think I saw a report about that.
Yes.
James Barnett, don't forget that some of the 2025 and 2026 guys have a chance of getting their 5th star.
I mean, look, depending on how their seasons go, they could get upgraded. And I think that's a great point. I saw somewhere where our guy, All Auburn on Twitter, was joking about a guy getting, like, somebody was like, oh, he flipped to Auburn and he got a bump. And he was like, well, the Auburn bump is crazy because usually it's the other way around, right?
Yeah.
Like,
you got to be really good, too. He was really good. Then, bro.
Yeah. He said Auburn bump is crazy.
Yeah. Alan Berry with the super chat says, where do you think Auburn will realistically finish, and what is the minimal ranking they need to be competitive recruiting wise?
I will die on this hill. There's not a ton of difference between the 10th ranked class and the 5th or 6th ranked class. You're usually talking about, a guy here or there, and
like I said, it's usually like 1 5-star recruit.
Right. And you're going to have some busts in there as well, too, right? Like, so this, when you're being in the top 10, it's about which team missed the least on the guys that they got in. Right. Because Gus was great at bringing in top 10 classes.
Right.
But when you look at the attrition from those classes, it was terrible. And a lot of those guys, again, very Byron Cowardish. Number 1 overall recruit, didn't even finish his career at Auburn. How does that happen? And when I went on Feinbaum, we talked about this with Cam Coleman. I think Auburn fans are looking forward to Hugh Freeze starting a trend of top shelf guys becoming Auburn legends.
Right.
There's a thing that 247 does, Ike, where they rate the best recruits in Auburn history, and Cadillac is still like top 5. Like when they go back and like re-rank him. Yeah. Like they're like, Cadillac's still a top 5 recruit. And you remember how heralded he was coming in because we were in school when that was happening. Everyone was like, he already had the Cadillac name, and this was before social media. So for him to be that known, was
Cadillac would have went crazy during the NIL.
They were nuts, man, dude. And so, I mean, you're so right. He would have had car dealership sponsorships.
Yeah,
I'd have owned a dealership by the time he got out here. But what I guess my point is that he came here and lived up to the billing because that's how good he was. And it feels like, from 2010 on, there were a lot of guys who came in with a lot of hype, but didn't leave with any Auburn records or they were okay to bust.
Yeah.
And Hugh Freeze, I believe he's going to turn that around about Auburn. His top shelf recruits are gonna leave Auburn with records, with statues, with accolades. That's what you're looking for. I think that's what Saban and Kirby are doing really well.
Yeah, so listen, this is the place where we have to start having the conversations about and the question that Alan asked on the second half of this: what's the minimal ranking that they need to be competitive? I think the answer to that is top 10. Top 10, you need to bring another top 10 class in, but what you're saying right there is so important to keep in perspective. You need to be bringing in guys there's no reason why in this era of collegiate football, Auburn's not bringing in guys who are breaking records at throwing touchdowns, passing yardage, receptions, receiving yards, because Auburn has never been a team that's thrown the ball particularly well. You should see more guys during this era of collegiate football that are breaking those kinds of records. And that's where Coach Hugh Freeze needs to be. Now, some of those rushing records may stand for a while because Auburn's been prolific in the run game, and running has not been as big a part of collegiate football in general over the last decade, right? So you may have some rushing records that sit up there for a while, right? Like Jarquez Hunter breaking the longest rush from scrimmage record his freshman season. It's going to be difficult to break 98 yards from scrimmage on a run, right? But single season rushing records, that might stand for a while. Rushing by quarterback, that's going to stand for a while. but you need to see some guys in a single season, not a combination of he started for 3-4 years and broke the total number. I'm talking about 1 year just really exploding with an offense. We need to start seeing that at Auburn in the pass game. And this is what Coach Hugh Freeze's legacy, I think, needs to be for Auburn in these next couple of years. Get a guy in here who's going to break the single season record for number of receiving yards, number of passing yards for a season. We need to see those types of offenses rolling through the plains here. And that doesn't mean they're going to break national records. Can they break the Auburn record, which is not super unattainable in this era? We need to see those sorts of things happening. And I think that's going to be the legacy that Coach Hugh Freeze needs to be achieving with Auburn here. Perry Unlikely Super Chat here says corny, but couldn't help it once seeing the other one. Auburn must have taken joy mode because AU recruiting is stiff competition.
I hope our folks at joy mode are watching. The puns here are amazing.
Yeah, he corrected the competition. I knew what you meant to say right there, Perry. It's all good, man. Couple more here. Jonathan Boyson says, Mike, you think Kirby's actually going to kick him off of the team?
100%.
Rod Thomas. Like, I just don't know how you keep him on the team.
Well, I mean, but I think that what's getting lost in this conversation about the things that are happening at Georgia is he's kicking everybody off the team. Guys aren't surviving their mistake. I don't know what people else they want him to do. Now, obviously, they do have a bit of a culture problem. And yeah, I think that this is part of the entitlement. And like, look, man, teenagers are jerks sometimes, Ike. And when you give a jerk a bunch of money and a car, they're going to be bigger jerks. And so they have lots of opportunities to be jerks. And Georgia is not the only place it's happening.
For sure.
The spotlight is on them right now. And we live in an age where you can no longer sweep these things under the rug.
Listen, man, they had a whole show called Last Chance U. It was happening all over the country for a bunch of people. Yeah.
So, I mean, now it's not to say that there aren't things that they could be doing to, make guys understand that what you have can be taken away from you. Obviously, but if he's kicking them off the team, I got no gripe with Kirby, right? If he's making excuses, he's keeping them on the team, and he's letting it slide. Okay, and this thing with Rod Thomas, I also want to say there is a stark difference between beating kids or whatever he was accused of, right, and traffic infractions, right. Because I'll tell you what, like the speeding stuff, there are, including on Auburn's team, there are a lot of kids right now because of NIL with supercars that you don't buy to go to speed limit in. Right. Now, his guys are getting pulled over, but I mean, God, we had a player almost get arrested on a moped 2 years ago.
Right.
It's happening everywhere, man. Yeah, I don't, like I said, I no gripe with Kirby as long as he is setting the example that it won't be tolerated and they're kicking him off the team. Yeah, so I think Ra-Ra is
the point of Ra-Ra Thomas. I mean, he hasn't been convicted of anything, but I think the charges that are being levied against him, plus what has been said, I don't know how he remains on.
He had another incident in January where the charges were dropped, but you can only have your name mentioned in so much stuff so many times before it's just like, look, man, I mean, stay in the house, man. Stay out of trouble. Stop hanging out with the people that you're hanging out with and make better decisions, because if your name is consistently landing in this stuff, it's you.
Right. Yeah. At that point in time, it's about the decisions that, like, listen, man, you can't get in trouble if all you do is go to class, go to practice, show up at the games, work out, and sit in your room and play college football 25. Right. Like there's little to no chance for you to get in trouble if you just work those 3 to 4 years that you're in college towards your goal and get out of there and have all the fun that you want as a millionaire. Like, just do that. And I'm not saying don't have fun. You could absolutely have fun, but do it with your other teammates, right?
Yeah.
Like, stop hanging around the people that don't have the same goals as you, because then you won't get into trouble as much.
Yeah, I don't like there's a I want to turn this comment right. Like he had
This
this
Georgia
same
fan, so
yeah, the same
more
problem
plugged
with
in.
the same girl last year. That was dropped. So I think Kirby is waiting to see what happens first. I will tell you, I don't think that you necessarily have to wait. I think that you can dismiss based on a pattern of behavior in decision making. Again, like you have a greater social responsibility as a high profile college athlete to make sure that the perception of you and what you're doing. Like, listen, man, if this girl is a problem, dump her and move on because you have a lot to lose. And
Right.
most of the people who are getting you in trouble don't have as much to lose.
Correct.
Right? You know, what did Nick Saban say? He said there's no such thing as wrong place, wrong time. So
Yeah.
I mean, it is. If you want the fame and you want the notoriety and you want the money that comes with it, right? Move. I tweeted this the other day. Move as if everything you do will be plastered on a billboard the next day for everybody to see. Now, if you would not be okay with it being put on a billboard, don't hang out with those people. Don't do those things. Right? We've just got to stop making excuses for young people and start teaching them about higher level decision making, especially if they're going to be in this sort of position where they're representative of a whole university that's giving a free education, Ike, and a ton of money.
Yeah. Especially now, and this was always the danger of, not the danger, but the other side of the NIL area. Once the money gets involved in this, especially if you've got high level donors and sponsors, you just don't have as much leash to say we'll look past this stuff, because people who are putting their money on the line don't want to be tied to that. They just absolutely don't. So
yeah,
you have to be more cognizant, and that's the lesson that NFL and all of these professional athletes have to learn eventually. A number of guys out here getting sponsorship deals and stuff canceled because of like silly stuff like tweets. Like you're not gonna survive charges, bro. Like not during this era, not during the social media era, not during the NIL area. It's just not gonna happen.
I'd really like, unless you're telling me this entire story was fabricated by somebody trying to take him down and they can prove that without a doubt, I'd be really disappointed in Kirby if he was not kicked off the team. Yeah. Right. But he came out and he said at media days, he said, "What do you guys want me to do, man? Like, we're kicking these guys off the team, and we got other kids like raising money for cancer." Like, and I agree with him to some extent on this. Like, if he's kicking them off the team, I'm not sure what else he can do as far as consequences are concerned.
Yeah. Now,
you can be a little bit more preemptive in making sure that you counsel and talk to your guys about, the impact of their decision making. And I think that's a lesson that a lot of young people need to learn today, right? There's an air of invincibility sometimes that college athletes have because, their names being called on Saturday. Everybody's telling them they're the man.
I mean, not just since it was Friday Night Lights, they've been getting away with everything in the world because they've been the guy and we don't want to kick him off the team. Like, for a vast majority of these guys, they have been immune to consequences for little things where it's just like, okay, well,
but you're good, so we're going to give you another shot. Whereas if you weren't good, they would just be done with you because you're not worth the trouble. Right. And I think, what you see with some of the other coaches is that, like, I mean, it's few coaches do it. Even Saban has been criticized for this, right? Where it feels like, what was it, Tony Mitchell?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the Tony Mitchell thing where, he seemed to take a stern stance at first, but then, he reversed course and people criticized him for letting Tony Mitchell back on the team.
Yeah.
So, I see both sides of this. I think that, forgiveness is important. I think that second chances are important. But, like, third and fourth and fifth chances are hard to come by. Yeah. They're very hard to come by.
I mean, and here's the thing. We have to start being able to make a differentiation between someone having consequences for an action and not being forgiving of like, I'm not saying that Ra Thomas is a terrible person.
Right.
Throw him in jail for the rest of his life. He should never be allowed to play football again. But that doesn't mean that him playing football at the University of Georgia makes a lot of sense.
Correct.
You can have a second chance. Doesn't need to be here, though, right? Because you've done enough here to kind of tarnish what we're trying to build as far as a locker room culture. Again, that's my stance. I'm not the one being paid however much money Kirby Smart's being paid per year to make these types of decisions and try to field championships for that team, right? So I don't have. It's easy for me, who doesn't have to make the decision, to say, yeah, man, he needs to get kicked off the team.
Do you remember when Sean White got his public intox because he was kicked off the team?
For sure.
Like, again, I don't want to be quoted on this, but I think I remember that the conversation that was had with him was, we've got to get your life on the right track.
Right.
And at this point, there are more important things than football.
Right.
Right. And he had lost sight of that. So he was making, it was about let's be honest, like public intoxication. Okay. Right. But it was about a pattern of decision making that they had decided.
It wasn't just about you made a mistake. It's like, bro, like this is like the third or fourth time you have this conversation.
You are making decisions that are actively leading to your own demise. And holding on to football is enabling some of this behavior.
Right.
So we're going to take this part away from you so that you can focus on getting your life together.
Yeah.
You know, I think that Michael Dyer, I think, would be another kind of example of this, where just a pattern of decision making. I was watching that 2010 LSU game, and I was like, there's absolutely no reason Michael Dyer shouldn't have been an Auburn legend.
Yeah.
None. He broke Bo Jackson's rookie rushing record. Like, you know, he was a national champion as a true freshman. There's no reason that kid should not have been an Auburn legend. But his own decision-making kept him from accomplishing that. And then he got a second chance. And he got caught speeding with a gun in the car when he wasn't supposed to have a gun. And, like, you know, and consequences are the only thing that stop kids from continuing to go down that path. And you have to have a coach that loves a kid enough to say, I'm kicking you off the team, but this is for your own good. So, like, wherever Ra Thomas is at now, again, I can't stress enough, it's important to delineate between traffic infractions and what he's being accused of. Right. So, like, but if there's any chance that he's going to get it together, it's not going to be because they continue to let him play football at the University of Georgia.
Agreed. All right. We're going to bring in Caesar really quickly because he hopped in here. He wants to give some thoughts here on Big Cat Weekend. Our guy C-Dub jumping in. We've talked pretty extensively about Big Cat Weekend so far. C, what are your thoughts on what has transpired in this past weekend?
I thought it was a good weekend for Auburn. I know it was a bit anticlimactic, as you guys indicated, but again, to what Mike alluded to, weather got in the way of Big Cat Weekend, so we didn't get a chance to see a back-to-back of Hugh Freeze getting thrown in the pool and the guys celebrating of him getting thrown in the pool. It was a lot of memorable things that stand out in our mind with last year's Big Cat that we didn't get to see.
Right.
But you had more commits this Big Cat than you did last time. And you also have to.
It was only two guys, right? If I'm not
two
mistaken.
guys. It was just two guys who committed.
Yeah.
The receivers.
Same number in the coming. Like, so you got two guys for the 25 season this time. You had two guys for the 24 season last time. So to your point, it's not as if it wasn't some big drop off of number of commitments happening for the upcoming recruiting class. But continue, my bad.
And I think we have to acknowledge the fact that this coaching staff is caught up from a recruiting standpoint. They're not trying to come from behind or playing from behind. They have 18 guys committed and fall camp hasn't started. So a lot of your legwork has been done for this recruiting class. You're just trying to close some guys down the stretch, and you're relying on having a good 2024 campaign to solidify where you stand with some of these guys. Right. So that's kudos to the staff for doing that. And that's evident by the fact that you got a 2026 class that you're starting to line up some big name guys. Yeah. So that's the benefit of staying on schedule. And this coaching staff understands that. I think the biggest goal or the job that this coaching staff needed to do was preserve and build. You preserved kind of where you stood with guys like Jared Smith, guys like Anquan Fegans, who are going to announce their commitments this week. Right. If they do stay on schedule, and all roads point to them signing with Auburn. So a week from now, we could be talking about Auburn being back in the top 10 of these recruiting sites and eyeballing a chance to get back in the conversation to be a top 5 recruiting class. So this coaching staff has done a lot to kind of preserve where they are, but they're also trying to build. You brought in guys like Derek Smith, who committed to Bama, who you've been trying to get make inroads with. It seems like he's listening to Auburn. He's a very talented athlete. He's being recruited as an athlete, but this is a guy that you're wanting to bring in and be a part of your, to kind of build the receiving room even more to what you built it. You also got guys like Sam Turner, a guy who's committed to Georgia Tech. Again, he's of the Hugh Freeze type of wide receiver, tall guy, big catch radius. That's listening. He's got some decisions to make in terms of whether or not he wants to join Auburn or remain with Georgia Tech.
Which, I mean, let's be clear, you just join Auburn, bro. Like we got a good engineering program if that's what you're going to Tech for, man. And then you get to actually play for a good football team. So, you know,
in a better conference, right?
Yeah.
In a much better conference. So you're doing this all without a QB in your class, which Auburn is still trying to either get Deuce Knight, KJ Lacey, or somebody else. They intend to, you know, we talked to Dukes. He said they will bring a QB into this class.
Yeah.
Whether or not they came to Big Cat is, you know, is not a deal breaker, but they're still working on that. We saw this coaching staff go down to the wire with some guys who wasn't even at Big Cat, who gradually continue to work on some of these guys. So I like where this staff is in terms of building momentum with guys who we may have thought we were out of it. Naeem Alford came by. You flipped Antonio Coleman. That was the biggest. Now, to me, that's what made it not anticlimactic. Now, obviously, Antonio Coleman is like the weather, right? He's committed to Bama and Auburn twice before fall camp. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that he may flip back, right? But the fact that you did that tells me that this staff isn't giving up on certain people. And so I think, to me, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with the QB position, the wide receiver position, even running backs. Usman Chroma, he's got some decisions to make. I know it's an FSU Auburn battle, but I think it's going to be interesting to see where we stand with the QB position, running back position. It's just our offensive skill players. Defensively, we've been loading up pretty heavy. It's going to be interesting to see what dominoes start to fall for our offensive skill players.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing for me when I look at these things. And again, I said anticlimactic just because of, I think, some of the hype leading up to it. Like, I was like, oh man, more anticlimactic because it was 5 guys, but 3 of them were from the 26 class, not because it wasn't a good weekend. I was just expecting, if there's going to be 5 of them, the majority of them were going to be 25 folks, and it wasn't. It was 26 folks. So especially like the first 3 that came in, I was like, oh, it's a 26. Oh, yeah. And then listen, don't let me be the wet blanket on the enthusiasm of recruiting, because I ain't going to be hyped with y'all about recruiting, especially for guys that's got like a year and a half before that decision. Because you're not going to get me to be that dude. I'm going to be like, great, good momentum. But I'm not going to be in here celebrating that.
Because you know what's going to happen when a guy decommits. The class is falling apart crowd is going to come out of nowhere.
People are right now bookmarking people's celebrations over some dude just so they can pull them out and be like, oh, you were so happy. Every tweet that happened in the last 24 hours that had anything to do with Auburn having the #1 recruiting class has been bookmarked by some petty Bama, Georgia, Ole Miss, freaking Ohio State, Michigan fan out there in the world, and they are waiting until the 2026 numbers start coming out and Auburn is no longer #1 to say what happened. It's gonna happen.
It's funny whenever I see too many bookmarks on my tweet and it's not like a highlight, it's someone keeping receipts on something.
Right?
It's never a good thing. The bookmarks are never a good
thing. Facts. Big facts.
So
big War facts. Daddy, is Ike complaining about this weekend? What part of that sounded like a complaint?
No, he's not complaining.
There was literally no complaint in any of that.
Listen, to Ike's point, Antonio Coleman is exhibit A as to why you hold your excitement to signing day.
Yeah, right? I just said I'm not jumping up and down. That's not a complaint. I think it's a scale of what a complaint versus me just talking is crazy.
I think that's fair how you're holding your excitement, because again, these are kids at the end of the day, and you're going head to head with some programs that are known for closing on some of these big kids.
I would just be worried about a kid that's that easily moved.
Yeah.
Right. Like if you're unsure, just don't commit. Hold out.
Right.
Until you can make a decision. But the flip-flopping back and forth would worry me about you know, I mean, I'm not saying he's going to be this way, but I think sometimes I'd just be worried, you know, about whether they might be emotionally like that once they join your team.
Yeah.
Hot and cold, hot and
Right.
cold, hot and cold.
Right.
You know, because you want them to have a good, you know, temperance.
Yeah, because I would be like, yo, this dude is one like stubbed toe of feelings away from hitting the transfer portal, even if he does sign.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So
Right.
I mean, look,
Right.
you want him. You want him. If he's good, you want him. Right. You just hope that like the flip flopping stops once he is signed. Right. And I don't know Antonio Coleman personally. I've never met him, and I'm not saying that he will be this way. I just say I think that it would worry me a little.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Like, this is the one. It was cool to see because you know you get to stick it to Bama, but at the same time, you're like, ugh.
Yeah,
right. So
yeah, like when they take him in the portal next year, and it's like, yeah, I don't know. Right. I mean, I wonder if at that point the board like, we're good. You know, I mean, listen, if you're talented, they'll take you. Like,
it's at some point someone had like at some point you do have to draw the line in the sand as a coach.
Yeah,
right?
you know what's crazy is so like Cam Coleman, for example, solid to Texas A&M. I felt confident there was no way he was going to flip. Unless
a year ago you were saying, guys, knock it off.
It's not going to happen. And listen, I'm gonna tell you, I wasn't wrong. But B added the stipulation. I think Jimbo getting fired, and I agreed with him. I said, if the coach gets fired, absolutely all bets are off. Because we've said repeatedly that kids commit to coaches over institutions. And I like how Cam did this, man. Like after Jimbo got fired, he decommitted. There wasn't a bunch of speculation about other schools, and then he committed to Auburn.
Yeah.
That's the kind of kid I want in my program.
I mean, listen, Cam Coleman was very resolute in what his reasonings were about why he committed, where he committed, and when those circumstances changes, so did his decision. It wasn't like, I don't know, but like he liked Auburn the entire time. But he had committed to Texas A&M.
Right.
He liked where he was with the wide receiver coach there. And that was it for him. Once that changed, that's when his decision changed. It wasn't like, well, I don't know. But like, no, he was going to Texas A&M.
He was going to Texas A&M, which, again, it makes me feel even better about him coming to Auburn because we know what changed and we knew what was driving his decision. And like, I have no doubt he's committed to playing receiver here. I don't anticipate that unless the wheels fall off the wagon, that he's going to be a guy that jumps in the portal. Right.
But even then, you would understand that. You would understand why he would jump into the portal because the wheels fell off.
It'll be really clear why he's leaving, and it'll be hard to blame him. But I don't know. Like I said, I'm with Ike on this one. I don't mind booging over wins, and I do think that it's important, like you said, to win the race from the front and not coming from behind all the time.
Right.
And that is, I mean, I think that's part of changing the perception of Auburn football.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So when Auburn wins the Iron Bowl, it's a miracle. When Bama wins it, it's a blowout. And that kind of thing, right? Like, changing that perception and start winning from the front, man.
Yeah.
Right. Now, listen, Saban left DeBoer. I know you was talking about beating DeBoer in the recruiting battles, which Hugh Freeze has to win his fair share of wins going head to head with DeBoer. DeBoer does have a Ferrari that Saban left him in his will when he retired. Right now, the question is he's as good of a driver as Saban was and knew how to make it a Ferrari, or is he going to turn it into a Mitsubishi? Right? Like, how good can he sustain the momentum Saban has left him? Because a lot of this is the fact that you talked about it. I think we talked about it with Duke's last live. A lot of these kids don't remember when Auburn was good.
Right.
They wasn't around when Auburn was good. They've seen Alabama be good. So they know about what Alabama can be, right? Even though the guy responsible for that success is no longer there, Bama is still a
brand.
Yeah, still a brand. Hugh Freeze is trying to build the Auburn brand. I think that's kind of the difference there in a sense in the minds of these recruits now.
Yeah, I mean, and let's be clear. I mean, Auburn is still. We feel Auburn's fallen off because we remember the Gus Malzahn years as far as recruiting of consistently being top 10 to 12, right? But Auburn was still in. I think people forget that how many teams are in the FBS of college football, and to be in the top 25 in recruiting, though that's not like championship level recruitment of talent, is not terrible. Like, you're not terrible at recruiting because you're in the top 25. Now, are you blue chip heavy and likely going to win a national championship? No, but you are within striking distance of being able to be a really good program if you can go out there and you can execute things on the field and have some good coaching. And so bringing Auburn back into that top 10 conversation is something that Coach Hughes is trying to do. But speaking of brands, the Auburn brand has never been weak, right? Like, that's the reason why you can have Coach Harsin be here and like just wake up in the morning and say, I guess I'll recruit today, and Auburn still not fall off the map on the blue chip ratio, because it's still Auburn. I think people forget that too. Like, Auburn's still Auburn. So you still have an opportunity to just have that brand strength behind you. Coach Hugh Freeze is trying to supercharge that and get it back into that place where it needs to be nationally, to your point.
And I think that's why I'm excited about what Hugh Freeze is doing, is because he's doing that while building a brand in Auburn. Right, that's tough to do. It's kind of easy when you're handed the keys to something that's already been built, and now you're saying, "Hey guys, come to what somebody else built." You're not saying it like that, but Hugh Freeze is saying, "Hey, this is what we're building. Come be a part of it." Right, and so I think for Hugh Freeze, this year is going to be very important. Auburn goes 8 wins this year. That helps in terms of the messaging, in terms of, hey guys, we're now in the process of building something important. We're for real.
Yeah.
Come on and join us, because look at what we did with Cam Coleman. How they utilize Cam Coleman is going to be so important, because we got one of our blue chippers that we brought in. Look how we utilized him. Look how successful he was. Right. Look what this offense has done. We're building something. Get on now while we got a spot for you.
Yeah, I think that this year that proof of concept is it's going to go crazy if you have the right kind of performance out there on the field. And again, that might not be wins and losses, but it needs to be competency in the pass game and not getting run over in the trenches on defense. It's got to be that this year.
Payne Thorne ain't throwing. He can't throw for 1,700 yards.
Facts. Stephen Riley said this earlier. Need to see consistent 3,500 passing yard. I don't know about 3,500 consistently, but it's gotta be north of 25. It's gotta be north of 25. You need to be pushing 3,000 consistently for sure.
26, 27, we running the ball crazy too. Like it's a balanced type of deal. But yes, we do need to start the conversation of hitting the 3,000 yard mark with our QBs for sure.
See a couple of more here. Derek McClellan says, Ike, I need a just a sec preview pod. Need to see where the SEC teams are sitting before the season kicks off. We literally just had this conversation. Was that yesterday? We were talking about how we're going to get into some of this stuff. So this week I'm going to start cranking out some of that. So expect a lot more of that content coming to you. I've been promising it for a while, but trust me, post Big Cat, or excuse me, post media days, when I said we're going to happen, we're definitely getting to a place where we're starting to do some of that stuff. Alan Bonner says, any idea of where we head with getting a quarterback in this cycle? I understand if we have proof of concept this fall that things have been changed for the offensive skill position. We're hoping for flips. I don't have any. You guys have anything to say about the quarterback situation?
TBD.
Yeah, I definitely want to have those conversations with those guys who follow recruiting a lot more closely than I do. Our guy Caleb Jones and our guy Deuces Scoop. I'll be following up with them post Big Cat to kind of see where we sit with some of that stuff. Drexel Kilpatrick says Fagan and the defensive end Smith might commit soon.
Fagan commits tomorrow, I believe, and Jared Smith commits this Saturday.
Yeah, so hopefully both of those guys will make the right decision and not go towards any of those other loser schools that they were had in their top 5 or top 3 or whatever they announced most recently. Floppy Toppy says, Can we have a guy named Floppy Toppy make a comment while we're pushing Joy Mode and Manscaped. Anyway, another great weekend. Now it's time for some proof of concept. A strong showing this season. We'll add to that 25 class. Agree with that 100%. Yeah. So
Toppy, if you use code rapport and go to
they keep sending samples to the house, guys. Like
I did get a second sample of JOYMODE to the crib this past week.
I was like, I don't know if I have this much sex to have. it's
not just
it's a big package, right? Oh, they said it's good for athletic performance too.
Hey, yo.
I was like, yo, what's good, man? I'm not taking this before I go to the gym. Just not doing it.
I use it for the gym, guys.
Yeah.
All right, y'all, man. Let's get out of here. Tell the people one more time how they can support all the things going on with the War Report, Mike G.
You guys know the deal. Become a patron. $5.99 a month will get you there. 300 of y'all, all 300 of y'all should sign up. That's how I feel. Not going to feel any other way. But we appreciate everybody for joining the Recruiting Talk. Big Cat Weekend, I think, was a success. Lots to celebrate. Still lots to look forward to. Look, if you are not a part of the Green Name Gang, you maybe can look forward to one of the gifted memberships that were given out. We had about 15 or 20 of them given out. Watch your email if you interact with our channel at a high level, but you haven't made the decision to become a patron. You're likely to be on the receiving end of one of these, so watch out for that. I want to thank Vintage 2298 Restaurant and Butcher Shop for sponsoring the War Report. If you're looking for some good eats, night out with your lady, just want to hang with some friends at the bar, watch the game, Vintage 2298 Restaurant Butcher Shop has you covered. We don't stress the butcher shop part of this enough.
Yeah. It's not just a restaurant. You can go in there. Listen, man, we got somebody who is giving you meat. We got the JOYMODE. We got y'all covered.
Every basis is covered, right?
Hey, we need B Will's voice. Hey, yo, that's crazy.
That's crazy. Yo, that's crazy. But Vintage 2298, the address is in the name, 2298 East University Drive in Auburn, Alabama, over by the mall and the movie theater. And Ace Hardware, former sponsors of the War Report. Guys, visit rogueshop.com. Use code REPORT to get 15% off your Rogue Shop order. Pain, sleep, stress, anxiety, whatever ails you in life, the Rogue Shop has you covered. We appreciate them for sponsoring the War Report. And also, we made a ton of jokes here today about this JOYMODE. Use JOYMODE.com. 20% off plus free shipping when you use code REPORT. And also, Manscaped. Visit manscaped.com. Code REPORT on everything, right? Yep. Manscaped is hitting you guys with the sizzle alert this summer. Let the only thing smoking at your barbecue grill, your barbecue be the grill, not your grooming game. Get ready for the ultimate cookout season with Manscaped. Whether you're flipping burgers or cannonballing into the pool, make sure your meat looks neat with the Performance Package 5.0 Ultra. Fire up your grooming routine and keep it cool with Manscaped. Head to manscaped.com and use code REPORT for 20% off plus free shipping. Let's make this summer sizzle for all the right reasons.
Yes, indeed. And before you all get out of here, make sure that you are sharing the video with somebody so they can see us apparently complain today. And make sure you like the video, even if you didn't like what we had to say. Go out there and follow us on social media. We're at the War Report, Twitter and Instagram, TW Report on TikTok. We'll be back at you guys with more great Auburn content later this week. Y'all just have a good week, man, and we'll see y'all soon. But until the next time, and as always, War Eagle.
War Eagle.